is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I think that, yep, the mic looks like it's working today.
So
I'm
don't be
doing well.
touching it.
Hey,
Just leave it alone.
Diane, down in South Carolina.
Georgia.
Oh, I'm sorry, Georgia. Well,
That's
I
okay.
should have just said down south.
South of the Mason-Dixon
There
line.
we go. There we go.
That's about where it's at. What's going on with you? How you doing this morning?
I told you, Diane, I am exhausted.
Exhausted.
I'm exhausted.
Exhausted from working hard. Exhausted from the man having his foot on your neck.
Well, but you know what? No. And we said we were going to talk about this, and I've been vacillating about how much time to spend on the show talking about Grandma Emma's peach cobbler business.
Right.
But it is consuming me. You know it is. Because when we're off here, you're like, you get some rest. You need to get some rest. I've canceled a couple of shows because, of baking. But here's what I want to say. When you commit to starting a business, understand it is like a person. It becomes an entity. It's a baby. And it needs attention. It needs to be fed. It needs to be changed. It needs all those things, right? And the changing is when you go through growth spurts or downturns and other kinds of things, right? That's the change. It needs to be fed. You're pouring money out as you grow, right? So if you have children, you guys, and as your children grew, they required more, right? When they were babies, they required little. But then as they grew, and they grew quickly, right? So when you first got them home from the hospital, first couple of days, maybe you're breastfeeding, the hospital might have given you some Similac, right? They gave you a little packet of diapers. Then if you had a baby shower, people gave you some stuff, right? So you don't really feel any economic pressure yet, right? But
wait a minute. Go back to the breastfeeding in the hospital. So, quick story. When I gave birth to my daughter, they wheeled her in her little, in a little bassinet. I never fed her because I didn't breastfeed for one, but I never gave her a bottle. And the nurse came back hours later. They said, "Oh, did you feed her?" I said, "No. I thought that was your job."
Are you serious, Diane?
I swear.
Diane.
So the poor child didn't eat for hours, but she slept. She didn't cry. She was good. I said she was asleep. She didn't say she was ugly. I was all supposed to know. But you guys did that before you brought her in here.
You thought you had a wet nurse in the hospital?
They was just like, oh boy. They was like, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. I was like, thank you.
Well, listen.
One of those things. What can I say? Learning. What did they say? There is no manual. Parent manual.
You know what? And the first one, Diane suffers. All the things you try on that first one, right? And then you get better for the second one. When I had my first kid, we brought her home, and again, like you said, in the hospital, they're all attentive, right? Everybody's checking on you. All this stuff is going on. So the reality of what's about to hit you, right, doesn't occur. And then all of a sudden, they say it's time to go home. And Diane, I tell you, there was a part of me that thought they were coming with me, right? So they put Lisa in a wheelchair, right? We had the carrier to put Olivia in. When we got outside, they checked to make sure that the car seat is properly fastened in the car. And then we put her in the car, and Lisa gets in, I get in, and then all of a sudden I realize those nurses aren't getting in the car with us. So we drive off, and then it slowly starts to unpack in my brain that, oh my God, this person
what have I got myself into?
It's not a baby. It is a human being, right? Because when you think of a baby, you think of an inanimate, cute little whatever. It is a small human being to whom You are 100% responsible. And who they rely on 100% because they can't do anything for themselves. So Lisa and I got home and we put her, and I had a futon because I was 24 when I got married, right? So put her on the futon and we just stared at her. We did. We were like, looking at her like, okay, now what? And so I called my mother, she called her mother, and then we started like getting downloads from my grandmother and aunts and other kinds of things. And then we went through the first cry, and it was like, okay, is the diaper wet? Does she need to be changed? Is she hungry? Does she need to be picked up? And then you realize that even though they're not speaking, they're communicating.
Right.
And the baby learns very quickly how to communicate its needs. Right? And then you, if you're an attentive parent, and if you're smart, you learn how to understand what the baby is
quickly.
Right. Because if you don't, you'll be in lost land, right? So
no peace.
Like you'll know this cry is gas, that cry is a diaper change, that cry, oh, she's hungry, right? Yeah. And then also timing of the day, you start to get in routines and like that. But yeah, man. Yeah, but businesses are like that. They cry, they do everything. And so, like, what did I say to you before we get into the show? I said, Diane, after the show, I'm going to crash because I was in the bakery until 1. That's when the Uber came. And then I fell asleep in the Uber. When I got home, I fell asleep on the couch. And then I woke up at 4 o'clock. I showered. I went back into the bakery. And I got home just in time to do the show. So I said I was going to rest. But as we're doing the show, I get a text message, Diane. Brookdale ShopRite needs us to deliver an order to them. That's what I'm saying. So it is a living thing.
It never stops.
It never stops. It never stops. You can stop it if you want to stop it, then it stops, right? So you either have a business or you don't have a business.
Right.
How do you do it when you go on vacation?
Well, it's funny that you say that because this is probably the second time that I've opened my laptop and actually did some work. I mean, I check my emails on my phone and I don't respond. I call back. If you leave a message, I definitely call back to take care of that business. But unless it's of urgency, something that you need to get done, I'm on vacation. So I do stuff leisurely. I'll do it late at night if I respond to emails and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because I sleep late. I don't get up any earlier than I would at home. In fact, I probably get up just as late as any other time. So yeah.
That's one of the things that I have to start to figure out, right? I mean, not right now, but at some point I have to try to figure out how to have me time, right? How to be able to go on vacation, how to not have this be all consuming and have some quality of life attached to it, right? And that's something that you guys, because you don't want to burn out. So the idea is to get in a rhythm, and then once you're in that rhythm, then you can now, pull time out for yourself. Speaking of which, and I want to say this, Diane, you're going to be happy to hear this. I am actually filling out an org chart for the business, and I'm looking at areas where I'm going to be hiring people.
Oh, good.
See?
Finally.
See, Diane?
So you're going to be working with Deidre to help fill those spaces for you?
Well, yeah, we could do that. So I want to try to, I think I want to bring in, like, just a kitchen helper, right? And I would say it would probably start off, washing some dishes, organizing stuff for me, because right now, I'm doing everything in the kitchen, right? So I'm baking, I'm washing, I'm organizing, and lidding and labeling and separating and doing all those things. So I want to bring in a kitchen helper and then start to offload little by little have them work intimately with me. This is my thought. Have them work intimately with me to see how well they pay
Take
attention
direction.
to detail. Detail is important because whoever that right person is, at some point, I want to offload a tremendous amount of responsibility to them. Their salary will increase, and then they'll have a staff that works under them. Do you see what I'm saying? So, but I need to be able to have an understanding that they can pay attention to detail, because once I offload to them, um, I won't have the time to micromanage. I want to be able to take that next step in growth in the company and all that other kind of stuff. So,
Right.
so I'll have a conversation with you, yes, and we'll look to do that. Welcome, Vincent. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How's everybody doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Hey. Yeah, I'm in Delaware right now.
He's making
Trying
his
to
way
get
down towards you, Diane.
No more room. We close the borders.
Come on, Diane. I mean, I mean, let's do the black thing.
Yeah. See, that's the problem. Y'all always want to hook up.
We want to
Come in the regular folks. Y'all have to have
That's right. About some warehouse space for my
Brother?
these long weeks, and you got all these connections. You got Diane, you got Deidre.
I don't know. See, but here, I'm gonna say this, and I get that I do need to at some point hire some people, but before you hire folks, you have to understand your business. You can't just see. There's a difference in delegating and dumping, and I've always said that, right? And people think that just giving people stuff is delegating. That's not delegating. Understanding timelines, goals, objectives, all of that kind of stuff, understanding project management and the project that you want to delegate, or the portion of that project you want to delegate, and its dependencies and all that kind of stuff. Having a clear understanding of that and the resource that you are getting ready to engage in fulfilling that, that's all
Eric?
important. Wait, let me finish.
Eric?
Let me finish.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Right? But you have some people who say, oh, you know what, that thing over there needs to get done. Hey, go do this. And that's not delegating, right? And so what I have found is having a full understanding of every aspect of your business, and then being able to interview the proper person who has the personality and the acumen to be successful, because now you know exactly what it takes. So I'll give you an example, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong, if you think I'm wrong. But for instance, I've gone through now. I can tell you how long it should take to plate. And that's what we call it. We don't call it. Somebody else said we scoop the copper into the thing. And that's not what we do, because we make it look beautiful in the thing. So we plate it in the container, and then there's a timing of it cooling, right? And that has to do with.
Diane, can you get your stopwatch going?
Well, but you asked me a question, so I'm trying to explain it, right? So you have to understand. First, you have to be Safe Serve certified, right? And then through that, you'll understand that if you put the lid on it before it reaches room temperature, right, bacteria will begin to fester, right? So all of those things I would need to explain to somebody if they were going to do that. Then if they were going to do it, I need to know, I believe, how long it should take them to do it. And in having done it several times and then working through different techniques of doing it, I've now minimized the amount of time it takes. And so I can say to somebody, if I bring them on, hey, reasonably, this should take you this long to do. And so now I can hire somebody to do that. But then I got to find somebody who's going to do quality control and supervise them.
Okay. Now, Eric, you know I love you, right?
Sure.
So here's a little tough love. You may have the exuberance of a 20-year-old,
No,
executive.
I don't. I'm 57 and I'm tired.
You have the drive of anybody I know who is driven, and you have a pattern of success. Not only that, you're not a dumb guy. You're 57. You're being stubborn. Hire somebody, grow the company, and get yourself some sleep.
Listen, I'm good.
Don't make me call your mother.
No,
I'll call her.
No.
We'll have an intervention. Me, your mother, Diane.
My mother comes to the kitchen and helps.
Don't
And
put
my
me in
sister
that.
comes to the kitchen and helps. But I'm being very serious. You can turn your business over to people too quickly.
Yeah, I
Right.
know, because you're emotionally attached. It's your baby.
No. But it's not about that. It is about understanding the principles that your company is founded on. So if quality service and quality product are the landmarks and the foundation, then everything has to align with that. And so what we say at Grandma Emma's is we're only as good as the last cobbler baked, right? Having said that, bringing somebody into the kitchen, they have to meet certain criteria, right? And we have to have a clear understanding of what that is, having done it ourselves. You know, it's like
Eric,
Vincent. No. Listen to me, right? So in the plethora of jobs that I've had, what has been an advantage to me, right, which has led to my success. So we may just have different ways of doing things, right, and that's okay too. But what I have found is that because in my industry, I've worked at every level. I literally started in a mailroom and worked all the way up. So when I began to hire people, when I was a global marketing executive, and then I gave them a task to do, I knew what was required to accomplish that and be successful. Now, had I not done that work before, I could have asked them to do something that might have been unreasonable. So for me, and I'm simply saying for me, you may have a different technique, and God bless you for it. But for me, what has been successful for me is to know in and out the business and then be able to hire the right person or people and then play to their strengths, connected intimately to what it is that I am expecting them to do.
Okay. Again, Eric, you're not a dumb guy. Stop being stubborn.
Vincent, no.
No, let me finish.
You know what I understood in that book that we talked about before, Eric?
What?
You can't convince people to believe what you want them to believe.
I'm not.
It's
I'm
okay
saying,
to disagree
Vincent, we
and
have a
move
different
on.
way of doing it, right? And just
Okay, now, can I finish? Eric, you're smart enough to eliminate those hurdles.
Vincent,
Make it work.
but now you're being condescending, right? I don't need you to tell me I'm smart. I don't need you to tell me I'm not a dumb guy. I'm simply saying right now, because this is annoying, I'm simply saying you and I have different methodology. We can come from different ways and get to the same place, right? So what you're saying is that what works for you should work for me. And I'm saying to you, what works for me has worked for me. And so I'm gonna continue to do what works for me. That's all.
So with that, check the screen because I think I'm frozen. But
you know why
you are frozen, and your mic is making staticky noise.
No, you know why you're frozen? Hold on for a second. Hold on, because I forgot when I do when I have the video, I can't go look in the Facebook feed. So guys, I can't comment on what you guys say today. And Diane,
I'm watching the feed.
So Vincent,
that's fine.
What you said you're looking for space?
You're breaking breaking up. Say that again.
You said you're looking for some sort of space for your business?
Yes, we are in final stages of buying a arena football team.
Oh.
So we need to look at some space to either build a dome or a space where we can hold practices. And we're looking at arena space, as well as finishing up some marketing concepts that I need these guys to approve. So this is going to be like the NBA, all televised and no fans. So look to push that forward, making that happen.
That sounds exciting.
Well, it could be.
Yeah.
It could be. Yeah, exciting to one person, terrifying to others. You know, but it's like business. You exercise and understand the known risk, and you do everything possible to eliminate those risks. And you have enough resources available for contingencies.
And in having done it,
You know, but we'll see how it goes. I can understand the known risk.
Okay.
And you do everything possible. I'll keep you guys posted on the progress.
Oh, you know what? They're saying that the mic is really bad. Mic, right?
Yeah.
This was the today. So I'm talking. Can you hear me clearly, Vincent?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, but you hear me through the phone, not through the mic. Can
I hear you through the phone.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Diane, just people give a thumbs up because now I'm talking and it's coming through my mic. Am I clear? Otherwise, I'm gonna have to trash this mic and buy a new one. Anyway, well, good luck, Vincent, and I will keep you in my prayers. I hope that that you are able to work out the deal that you need to work out to lead you to the success that you seek.
I'm looking forward to having you. I'm looking forward to having you and Diane in the owner's box watching the games.
Hey, listen, I want to try out. Wait a minute, Diane. Hey, listen, I was a hell of a. I want to try out. Do you have an age limit?
Yeah.
Well, first you have to pass the medical clearance.
All right.
And
that might be a hurdle.
And if they deem you fit or in good football shape, then you get to match your skills with the rest.
So
Shay Coulter just said.
Huh?
I'm sorry. Shay Coulter just said that the Ivy League canceled their fall football season. Shay, am I clear? Do you hear me clear?
So Vincent, I'm about 154 pounds soaking wet.
There are people in junior high school that have that physical attribute.
Yeah, man. I think I'll stay on the sideline. Maybe I'll work as the water boy. I don't know.
No, I think sitting in the owner box, giving some of your expertise and business knowledge and savvy and marketing to help us develop and grow it into the enterprise that we would be proud to represent, or proud to have represent us, would be most helpful. I want to stick to your strengths.
All right. Hey, like I told you, man. I could dish out a mean cup of water too. I could do that.
Hey, but I much prefer you supply us with some of that mean cobbler that have everybody salivating for their next cup. Oh, by the way, Eric, thank you for getting me in trouble with the wife.
Why? What happened?
You were supposed to call me to let me know when I could come and pick up some Grandma Emma's.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm telling you, I was in the kitchen. And you know, people on my Facebook feed, they ask me, are you in the kitchen now? Are you in the kitchen now? And so I was in the kitchen until 1 a.m. And then I went back in at 4 a.m. So right now, Vincent, we have fresh peach, apple, and blueberry.
Wow.
Yeah, man. So let the wife
Wow.
know that.
No, she decided to not compete and just have me buy it from you.
Yeah, man. Well, anytime, brother. Anytime.
Great.
So when affirmative action
Oh, wait
was
a minute.
right.
Can I play that? Can I play the that audio
Yep,
clip?
go for the clip.
I'm gonna play that audio clip that I played the other day, and this will be a primer, guys. Now we're gonna talk about a whole lot of stuff, And Diane, I'm gonna tell you, every time I listen to, because I told you I didn't read it, I got the audio book. I was just mad, mad, you know.
Systematic.
Well, but angry, right? But the understanding is, the more you know, if you're not angry, something's wrong with you. If you're not angry, something is wrong with you. So I'm gonna play the audio clip. You guys listen to it, and then we'll have a conversation. Here we go.
With the glimmerings of the civil rights protest, early pro-civil rights decisions by the U.S. Supreme Court, and support for civil rights by some leading Democrats, Southern anxiety continued to grow throughout the 1930s and 1940s. Our position is desperate, Georgia's Richard Russell wrote to his fellow Senator Sam Ervin of North Carolina. For we are hopelessly outnumbered, but we are not going to yield an inch. They did not. The South's representatives built ramparts within the policy initiatives of the New Deal and the Fair Deal to safeguard their region's social organization. They accomplished this aim by making the most of their disproportionate numbers on committees, by their close acquaintance with the legislative rules and procedures, and by exploiting the gap between the intensity of their feeling and the relative indifference of their fellow members of Congress. They used 3 mechanisms. First, whenever the nature of the legislation permitted, they sought to leave out as many African Americans as they could. They achieved this not by inscribing race into law, but by writing provisions that, in Robert Lieberman's language, were racially laden. The most important instances concerned categories of work in which blacks were heavily overrepresented, notably farm workers and maids. These groups, constituting more than 60% of the black labor force in the 1930s and nearly 75% of those who were employed in the South, were excluded from the legislation that created modern unions, from laws that set minimum wages and regulated the hours of work, and from Social Security until the 1950s. Second, they successfully insisted that the administration of these and other laws, including assistance to the poor and support for veterans, be placed in the hands of local officials who were deeply hostile to black aspirations. Over and over, the bureaucrats who were handed authority by Congress used their capacity to shield the Southern system from challenge and disruption. Third, they prevented Congress from attaching any sort of anti-discrimination provisions to a wide array of social welfare programs such as community health services, school lunches, and hospital construction grants. Indeed, all the programs that distributed monies to their region. As a consequence, at the very moment when a wide array of public policies was providing most white Americans with valuable tools to advance their social welfare, ensure their old age, get good jobs, acquire economic security, build assets, and gain middle-class status, most black Americans were left behind or left out. Affirmative action, then, was white. New national policies enacted in the pre-civil rights, last-gasp era of Jim Crow constituted a massive transfer of quite specific privileges to white Americans. New programs produced economic and social opportunity for favored constituencies and thus widened the gap between white and black Americans in the aftermath of the Second World War.
Okay, did I... Hold on, guys. I'm trying to make sure... Why is that still playing? Oh, hold on. There we go. There we go. All right. Diane? Diane?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh. So, when we talk about structural and systemic racism, when we talk about this country, how it views us through its policy making and implementation of those policies. And then you hear that, and you read these other things that we're going to unpack in this book. I ask the question again, how do you vote for any of these elected officials? Because they all know. They all know. Like, and the crazy part for me during this whole COVID-19 thing, Diane and Vincent, is they all acted surprised. Like, oh my God, black people are dying at a disproportionate rate. Or when some data came out somewhere and it talked about the disparity in black people in prison, like, oh my God. But they've set it up like this. And then they now are overseeing it. And some of them, again, for 30 years as politicians, 60 years as politicians, 50 plus years as politicians. And now all of a sudden, they say to you what? Black Lives Matter.
Right. So to start it off, we'll start with the preface of what W.E. Du Bois talked about in the beginning of the book. He stated that black Americans had begun to turn away from Lincoln's Republican Party to offer their votes when they could vote to Roosevelt's Democratic Party, despite the presence within the New Deal coalition of the Southern Democrats who fiercely protected Jim Crow. Negro children are systematically denied education. When the National Education Association asks for federal aid to education, it permits discrimination to be perpetrated by the present local authorities. Once or twice a month, Negroes convicted of no crime are openly and publicly lynched, even burned. Yet a criminal crime convention is brought to and unwilling to notice of this only by mass picketing and all but illegal agitation. When a man with every qualification is refused a position simply because of his great-grandfather was black, there is not a ripple of comment or protest. So W.E. Du Bois wrote this in 1935. But we're in 2020 having the same situation. And someone in the feed said, but everything is much better now.
Somebody actually said that in the feed? Mm-hmm. Okay, so whoever that is that said that in the feed, you point to the data that tells us that things are better now. Because we are at the very bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. We, according to all data, there'll be zero wealth in the black community by 2053. We're headed toward an apartheid state. Segregation in schools is worse now, like New Jersey in particular, the most segregated school system in the country. Unemployment, mortality rates, food insecurities. So I want you to tell me, because the data that I have suggests differently.
So that was 2020. We're talking about 2020. So now going back to the 1930s and 1940s, they stated that Vincent Nutrafone, that Jim Crow's last hurrah in the 30s and 40s excluded or differentially treated the vast majority of African Americans. It traces how inequality, in fact, increased at the insistence of Southern representation in Congress, while there were other congressional colleagues were complicit. As a result of the legislation they passed, blacks became even more significantly disadvantaged when a modern American middle class was fashioned before and after the Second World War. Public policy, including affirmative action, has insufficiently taken these troubling legacies into account. Rather than limit attention to successful programs that were made at elitist institutions, more racially integrated They propose that affirmative action focus on antidotes for specific harms that date back to national policies in the 1930s and 40s as remedies for deep and even chronic disposition that continues to afflict a large percentage of Black Americans today.
Well, the whole thing, and what I love about the book is that it is historically perfect in terms of the facts and the time in which it happened. And what it does for a lot of people in bulk shows you the birth of systematic racism, or the institutional, I guess, what was the way of it, oppression of a particular race or group. I mean, when he stated clearly that, the things that were designed not for us, and then they did everything to exclude us from it, like that we dealt with recently, the New Deal, the deal, and then the Republicans' version of the New Deal, the actual building of wealth for white America, where at that time period that he talked about, in the Reconstruction period, they were giving them land, yet they excluded Blacks from having it. So without that land, it was difficult for them to get credit to continue their growth and build. The best thing that they could do were sharecroppers. And the majority of the programs that he talked about in the 40s were to reverse the post-slavery development or rise of the African Americans, where we started to come into legitimate prominence, from slavery to millionaires, to landowners, to business owners, to educated people. And
don't get too far. Stay within the context of what we're talking about.
Okay, so what I'm going a little ahead.
We do chapter by chapter and cover that chapter. We don't want to go outside of the chapter, because otherwise you're covering too much and you're missing stuff that's in the book.
Okay. So chapter one was explicit and giving a blueprint of the systematic racism and prejudice and how it started. It started always through legislation. And Eric, you couldn't be more right than saying, how could you know that this is happening, that happened back then, that's still happening now, and you not be upset? You not wanting change and not understanding that you have the biggest power to make change, to better your life, the life of your children, but yet people still will not vote.
Well, you know what? So we can say that it starts with legislation, right? But what it really starts with is a belief by a group of people that they are superior, right? And so we talk now in 2020 about how they see us, like it's something new, right? But I'm saying this is how they've always seen us. They've always seen us as the commodity to their wealth and to their power. Always.
See, and
go ahead.
That belief of superiority is basically hypocrisy. It's a lie. If you are superior to another person, would you therefore make legislation to oppress a person or bully a person to make them even less? What is the superiority in that? That's a bully. And then you get other bullies to co-sign your BS, and you now systematically or grouply oppress a group of people. Where's the superiority? If I have to cheat to beat you, then I'm not superior.
Well, that's incorrect, because the purpose of the legislation that they put in place was something that they wanted to make sure that stayed in place even when they were deceased and their grandkids and great-grandkids were in power, was so that the system could be so tied up it could not be undone. That was the purpose of the legislation, is so that they could address abolishing the slavery, endowing blacks with citizenship, and protecting their right to vote between the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. But while giving you these precarious amendments, they also went and added on stuff that would specifically stop you and halter you from being able to move forward. They knew exactly what they were doing.
And so wait a minute.
They were giving you something on the surface, but behind the scenes, they were giving you nothing.
They were taking things away, and so and they were hobbling, right? Black people and Black Americans.
No, they were giving you lip service and the thought that you were getting something, but in all reality, they were taking everything away from you.
And so when we say reparations, right? When we say repair, and you have people say repair for what? And when we start to outline these things, you say, well, okay, so this was done intentionally to cause harm and damage, right? And reparations is to make whole where there was harm done, right? So a lawsuit, a suit, I have, for me as a foundational Black American, as an American descendant of enslaved Africans, it is, and I don't emotionalize it. I simply say I want to bring a suit, forward and say this country did this. This country did this, and they need to repair the damage done. And so for every Black American that is thinking about anything other than that, I'm confused. And so trust me, there will be books written 50 years from now about how they're still screwing Black Americans, right? Like we're reading this book, but there'll be books 50 years from now about how they set policy in place, right? How they transferred wealth, how they deprived Black people voting, being able to live in certain communities, being able to attend things. That's happening in 2020. So they haven't stopped. So they did it. They never stopped doing it, and they're arguing about whether or not they should offer reparations to repair. Well, first cease and desist. Stop doing it, right?
Correct.
And because we know that they are habitual, right, in what they do, then what we have to do is vote them out of office. All of them. Just blow it up.
Correct. See, they're using what's called Robert rules of order. If a system has already been in place, you cannot make changes unless you have a mass agreement upon the change.
In what they do.
No, the bigger issue is to understand how it systematically was created, was to understand how the war was going, and how the Southern Democrats and the Northern Democrats were working together in cahoots to get what they wanted. So the Southern Democrats wanted to continue, and Republicans wanted to continue slavery, but because they had to enact an amendment.
Why
the Southern Democrats wanted to, right?
The Southern Democrats wanted to continue slavery because that gave them power. It was the Solid South, the 3/5 rule, in which they used to count their slaves as a vote, but then they went to Congress and legislated in the Constitution a person or a slave was considered 3/5 to be added into the vote. So ending slavery ended their power in legislation, which means that they had to now one, do earnest work labor for their employees, henceforth slaves, or free them. So the Northern Democrats wanted to keep it the same because they didn't want them all being free and running north and ruining or flooding the Industrial Revolution.
That's absolutely right. And so, again, how they see us. And it's no different now. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So in parts of how they did it, how they actually constructed these laws, they set up the system of Social Security.
Right.
And in the process of setting up the system of Social Security in the United States, they created, let's say, exclusions as to who would actually be included and be able to receive these benefits. So while the majority of the Southern blacks were in positions of working in the farms or working as housekeepers and maids, they made it so that Social Security would exclude those types of businesses. When they created the unemployment system in the United States, they also did the same thing, or excluding farmers. or anything. They went as far as excluding anything that had to do with the production and delivery of farming items to make sure that Southern blacks or blacks across the country could not benefit from unemployment and Social Security. And then in extension to that, they turned around and said, well, which we still have in place now, the federal government said, well, we'll allow the state to decide if they even want to implement or jump in and to receive any of these benefits. So this way, it expanded out of the South into the northern and western states for them to be able to eliminate Black Americans from being a part of or receiving any of these benefits.
Yes, that's called the self-employment rule, where if they're not contributing, where they deem these companies ineligible to participate in the actual government legitimization of their business and industry, such as the maids, the cooks, the farmers, which were roughly the largest source of income for Black America in the post-construction. So in doing that, they basically, like Diane said, legislated them out of the picture.
Yeah, I'm just, I mean, reading the book, I mean, we talk about all of the things that lawmakers have done. This country has co-signed. I don't know, Diane. I was feeling some kind of way about it and Black people, right? But keep going.
So into the second chapter, which covers welfare, black and white. A part of the New Deal is what they did. The same thing. They used the law to be able to reward or to exclude blocking capacities of using the Southern delegation to block stuff to keep Black people specifically from receiving any type of assistance. What they called it was a Southern power that rendered the president at that time basically silent about, one, the anti-lynching bill, which he permitted. At this particular time, now we're talking about the armed forces, the Navy, where they were able to exclude, and the Army exclude Blacks from being able to join. And when they did join, they were assigned to Jim Crow units, which were led by white officers. They focused, of course, on large numbers of Blacks who were excluded from key social policies. And at this time, the president was Roosevelt, and they talked about how he hasn't brought Social Security to domestics or farm workers, or over half of the colored people who are in those two classes, whether those categories have been excluded from wage and hours protection. So that was one of the things that he also discussed. But moving more into it, then they went on to talk about the health care facilities and the health care provided to Blacks Americans at that particular time. And as now, so you're talking about what happened in the 1930s to what's happening in 2020, the same thing of death rates for Blacks remain high across the board, higher birth rates. Despite that there are higher birth rates with whites, the size of African American families lag. The results often astronomically disproportionate. Infant and maternal mortality rates were higher. Then they moved on to talk about the schooling system, about how most Black schools were usually without comfort. So now we're talking about the 1930s, but this is going to 2020, the same thing. But go ahead.
Said things are better, right?
Right. That was back when they were saying separate but equal. But listen, guys, real quick. I gotta go. My 11 o'clock is starting. So be blessed, everybody. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Take care. Good luck.
So the same thing that we've talked about with education. So you're talking about the 1930s, and now we're in 2020, and we talk about the school system in Jersey City. We're talking about the school system in Newark. We're talking about the school system in Patterson and Camden, the largest cities in the state. Most of the Black schools, now from this book, they're saying most of the Black schools, comprehensive study reported, are usually without comfort, equipment, proper lighting, or one or two teachers types, here are found the poorest trained, the lowest salary teachers, the shortest terms, the poorest attendance, the crudest buildings, and the most meager equipment and teacher material. Yeah. So are we talking about 1930s or are we talking about 2020?
Hey, we're talking about the black experience. Call or go.
Hi, it's Kevin Jenkins. I'm jealous of you.
Yay, Kevin!
We're talking about the black experience. And the black experience, it starts well, we mark it at 1619, right? So, you know, go ahead. Hey,
go ahead, drop the knowledge, Kevin.
And I heard, I think it's great that you're having a discussion. It's timely. You know, Dr. Garrity came out with his book about equality in the country, and it's a phenomenal book, Eric. I got to share it with Diane on the show. But it actually outlined all of the things that came out of the 1960s and dealing with the issues of reparations. But you know, the thing that it just breaks my heart is that I hear Diane that we have not moved the dial whatsoever. You know, and those same conditions are still in these communities, and I think we're more directly responsible for the affirmative action gap now than anybody else, even though I understand structural racism, systemic, however, whatever you want to call it, it is public policies that trap us in perpetual poverty. And it takes away all of that. Like what you're doing with your business right now, Eric, is just a prime example of how black Americans can really start to build opportunities for themselves and break away from some of these, I call them the poor liberal policies that have affected our lives. But I got to tell you,
Kevin, you're breaking up. Where are you at? Move around.
You know what? Breaking up, right, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna
stand still.
Okay, I'm gonna stand still. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's better.
I got to tell you that this book is so timely, and you need to really read it even further. And you might need to do another section of it because I don't think people, Eric, Diane, and I don't know who else on the call, but I don't think
it's just the three of us.
Effect of what those public policies have done to our lives and how we now have accepted them. Like, you know, in black neighborhoods, we're 100%, you know, we have 100% of the elected body. We're still using the word affirmative action. We're still using the word, you know, what is the other term that they use, guys? Set aside. We're still saying, okay, after us getting power, we're still using the language and the same public policies that trap our communities or take us away from, take away the abilities for us to have opportunity. I'll give you an example. The guys that are suing the government, suing the state right now about getting access, not just to be diversity fund managers, but to be managers. That's been happening for the last 50 years in this state. If you look at all of the local governments, right, you look at what business black Americans are doing in those cities, it's almost 0.1. And if you look at those departments in those black cities, they still have an affirmative action department happening. So they're actually taking those policies that have trapped us into poverty, you know, when affirmative action was right, and they did not translate that for growth for their own people. Actually, they used it as a way for their own people not to engage in commerce, not to engage in business, not to engage in creating economic opportunity. Even with the banks in our city, even when we had CRAs, when we were able to get access to CRAs, it took, I believe, if I'm not, it took Dell to take the money out of the bank to force the bank to give money to black owners and black developers that gave them access to capital. That's how you got WISDOM. Now, WISDOM didn't stay in the spirit of what it was built on, but that's how you got WISDOM. That's how you got the development of the stock price. That's how you got a lot of that stuff done.
Right.
So our black leadership right now, Eric, to me, is directly responsible for continuing those affirmative action programs that allow, I would just use, for the lack of a better word, white people to come into our communities and extract all of the resources and then leave and then take their kids and take their family and build stronger communities. And then our black leaders in these communities aren't doing anything for their people. And they think by just having one black guy coming into business like Eric Dawson, that's just good enough. They can showcase him and pimp him. But that's when affirmative action was white, coming out of war, coming out of all the things that happened in this country, coming out of the New Deal, all of those things. That was readily available for white people, because white people so that their communities access to capital. Now, after 50 years of black leadership, we didn't do not even a third of that. Because a lot of the people that we're talking about, Eric and Diane, to them, they just think by having a bunch of black people in the road, great. No, it's about changing the structure. Black elected are now the gatekeepers that suppress our value. But we've
talked about all of that, right? We've used these
That's right.
terms:
That's
gatekeepers, Negro whisperers, slave catchers.
right.
We've talked about all of it. We've talked about the brutal nature of this country and how it's treated. We've talked about policies that have kept us down, and those people who continue to defend those policies. But now it's all. So listen, it's not for debate anymore. It's not. We talked about.
You know what, Eric? You're absolutely right, Eric.
Yes,
You know what?
So is it?
It's not even about your opinion anymore.
It's not. It is not a. It's not an opinion. It is a fact. And this is why. This is why right now. And it's before the end. I have subscribed to what my father told me for a very long time. Those who you won't let die won't let you live. I'm not doing it anymore. So the person, every word that said things have improved and have that discussion.
But you know what, though? I'm glad you.
But what I'm saying is, is that person, you know, it's my time. They were. Or they statement. And so I'm saying go read. Because the statement that you're making is a very dangerous one. And it is one that is leading a lot of Americans down a illusion that things are better.
Well, Eric, do you see what the book says? When a affirmative action was right, that means that they created public policy to advance their group.
Yeah.
We don't create public policy to advance our group. That's the name of the book. And what our customer, I think it's our customer, he did was he showed the pattern legally on how they did it, and how when they came from World War II, how they got their affirmative action, how the national policies would change for them, how the foreign policies would change for them. They were working on public policy that helped their group. Now, tell me, anybody that's listening on this phone, that's conscious in any way, only one place in America right now with black Americans that are elected in this country that are still facing public policy to move their group forward. They're not. They're not doing it. You know what? I'm not talking about, let me just be straight. There are some individuals in this country that might be doing it. That individual, one individual doing it doesn't mean much. I mean, I commend them for doing it. Don't get me wrong. And I'm glad they're conscious. But there was a movement. So legislatively, right? Community, they got together and they created public policy.
So when we talk about these organizations, and people think that I just use these names just to poke fun at them. But when I say the Congressional Black Caucus, right, and the Do Nothing group of people, what we're talking about, right? These are policymakers.
So in chapter,
Just what happened. But Diane, but that's when it's based on. I know.
No, go ahead.
But let me just say this to you. Just last we were on the show. Because actually, we were the forerunners of all of this discussion in the last week. We've been having consistently every week. And people say, oh, you're talking about it. People just won't get it. We just can't move on like a TV show. Because it's so critical. So now they said that when we talked about reparations, they took that off. They came back with symbolism and they nailed it. When we talked about how we can deal with the banking industry, they gave trillions of dollars to the banking industry and distributed to businesses like yours, Derek, that would never get a dime of money whatsoever. So you know what they did? They kept it right inside their network so they can continue to get what? Affirmative action. They continue to keep getting held down. Those policies that are impacting our community are still intact. And those are liberal policies, and affirmative action was a liberal policy that break their people out of poverty and move their people beyond where we were. That was motivation. It was time for us to benefit after we were the losers, but we were going to have a breakthrough. So what did they do? They picked a few Negroes and they said, look, he's the best example of a breakthrough. Now, individually, that person might have been. But affirmative, affirm and then action. They affirmed their policies and they took action. Now, let's go to all of the black cities in America, right, that have had black leadership over the last 50 years. They did not affirm one policy that took action to change the conditions of their community. Not in the banking space, not in the economic development space, not in the community development space. What we did was we took money from the federal government to affirm and action so they can make money off of us while we were doing what? Building houses for the poor, but the people that were building houses for the poor, right, were white people. It was not black people. So all of this time that we've been fighting for our true citizenship in this country, we are still a bottom tab. So the affirmative and the action never worked for us. And anybody that's listening to this show that actually believes that, right? I hate to say that news so much different from the guy now. You are delusion. You are about red. You are delusion. You need to turn off the TV. You need to walk upside your house. You need to walk upside your phone, up and down your phone. I'm talking about Newark. I'm talking about Chicago. They are now heavily motivated on somebody else's agenda as opposed to being motivated on changing policy. Now, tell me, Eric, tell me, Diane, show me one place in the country where there's black Americans living, and if they use Atlanta, I'm going to bust out laughing. That they are affirmative in taking action, saying that we are going to get $1 billion of tax to this group over your group, because for the last 50 years, we've been shut up. It's 1619. I keep saying it, the marker on 1963 when I was born, right? So from 1963 down, we have never affirmed any action for ourselves. Just like we always say on the show, we are the tools we are the commodity to their wealth. Just in 2 political cycles, they have affirmed action. What was that affirmative action, Diane and Eric? They affirmed over $12 to $15 trillion to the wealthiest families on this planet. And we're still talking about making us whole. We're still having a debate about how do we compensate the black Americans for building the country. No one in this country, no congressman, no senator, no state senator, no rep, none of them are having that conversation. And that's because black Americans internally have not had the internal war we need to have. We need to have a bloody civil war inside our communities, because the people that are fronting for the oligarchs, they are now participating in the last battleground that's going to wipe us out. We're going to get wiped the fuck out.
Just 3. They talked about the rules for work. So during the Eisenhower time, of offering concessions on issues for racial civil rights and regional prerogatives, worked to keep Southern Democrats in the we have the involvement and the beginning of labor unions and the benefits of working in America. So in the 1930s, they talked about the passage of the National Labor Relations Act in 1935 and the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938. Ushered in, there was what is called a working class interlude in American labor history. So basically, it helped those who were in the middle, and again, excluding those who were in the majority of the jobs that were working on farms and working as housekeepers, because they stated that those positions could not quantify why they should be receiving any type of union type benefits. They used the federal government at that time began to offer unions as a broad legal umbrella as a shelter. So while they created their union, the federal government gave the union an umbrella of protection. So what happened was the labor movement when businesses already that were taunted with changes that were linked to many of at least 1 million members at that particular time that they had roles and membership, the AFL. They talked about everything that was expanded after the Second World War to make sure that when the white from the wars that they were able to have and get and maintain jobs and have protection. Because while they were off at war, filling in those positions, those jobs, that they wanted their jobs back, and they wanted to guarantee that they had respectable wages, they had protections, and that their workers had all the necessities that were necessary for them to be able to move forward and take care of their families. They also at that time established the minimum wage at that time under Roosevelt was 25 cents per hour. But that was still even more than what workers were getting that were working on the farms.
Well, you see, Eric, what did they do, Eric? They affirmed and they took action
Right.
to protect their class.
So look,
Their class.
so
Put the policies that are still intact.
look, but what we talk about on the show is, and I'm going to say this, to the degree that they took action that intentionally harmed us, I take issue with that. But to the degree that they took action to benefit their folks, I don't. I'm saying they continue right that path here. Saying so I yeah. Take
about it, and I think roadmap for the future. So history is how the people. This is how. No one would affirm it. Because when we to help.
or no, you know the other piece that happens. We talked about this. We get radical. They demonize us, right? They're right. We're not working to get along. That.
My dog. The thing about it is there's no punishment. The problem with Black Americans in this country, when you talk about affirming something or creating an action that helps them, and you see what everybody else does, there's no punishment for those people. I think all of those people that have been in front of us should be punished. I think they should be taken to the public square and thrown and burnt on fire.
But here's the question that I have. But here's the question that I have, right? we've talked about this on the show too. There is a deficiency in the black community. You know, there is an immaturity when it comes to matters like this that exists in the black community. I mean, and I don't know if that's hurtful or I don't know if we'll take it, but it's the truth.
Eric,
Right?
I think you're being kind, Eric. You know,
But
I think it's mental illness. I think that the core issues of
I
America
think
is
some of it is
mentally ill.
mental illness, but I think some of it is mental illness. We talk about arrested development, right? And I think there is certainly a development that exists, and then I just think that there's immaturity too, right? So when you can, in the middle of this, and we were talking about this whole all Black Lives Matter mural that was painted on Halsey Street in downtown New York, you can celebrate crime where babies are consuming right? Every about in
I did framing it. You know, as we work for black people to have that conversation. That's now last week, 4 weeks ago, there was two things that in court. I don't know if you guys thought about it. And it sticks to they said that to be gay in America, to be LGBT in America, not about the race, not about your, you know, your, none of that. It's about the fact that if you're gay, you are protected. And you're a doctor, and I don't, you know, we all agree that we don't want to be put back. They have full citizenship there. But black Americans painting on the ground black lives. When the Irish, right? We haven't gotten to that book yet. But think about it. It is the roadmap that they use. The one thing that's really reoccurring theme in this book, Diane, what is it? That when it was right? We never were. It was never a first action for us. They out. That's what they blocked this out. That's why they changed the banking laws. They blocked this out. That's why they stopped the
Somebody said they can't hear us. Eric, is the sound working?
yeah, it's working.
Okay, so into the next. That's fine. Going into the next chapter, divisions in war. An Army War College training manual to prepare for the influx of black troops summarized the prominent view that underpinned those decisions. As an individual, the Negro is docile, trackable, carefree. If unjustly treated, he is likely to become surly and stubborn, though it is usually a temporary phase. He is shiftless, irresponsible, and secretive. He resents censor, and he is best handled with praise and by ridicule. He is unmoral, untruthful in his sense of right during his militant period. On the other hand, the Negro is cheerful, loyal, and usually uncomplaining, is reasonably well fed. Has a musical nature and moments of rhythm. His art is primitive. He is religious. He has proper direction in mass. Negroes are industrious, they are emotional, and they can be stirred to a high state of enthusiasm. Their emotions are unstable and their reactions uncertain. Now, this is inside the Army War College Training Manual.
Oh my
1940.
And you ready? Example of that for the last 12 weeks. Well, 5 weeks. 12 weeks. It's an example about how they think about us. Pretty interesting. What page is that on, Diane?
That's on page 99. They talked about also resembling all the new this statute established national policies, including a prohibition of discrimination based in race and color, but implemented them in decentralized fashion in order to protect Southern preferences. That's so they could still see slaves. This new law and the decision to send black the Courier, which was a newspaper at that time, rarely but accurately remarked northern South and the South. The Southlands are and there is not very much left.
I don't know what to say after that one.
Like,
On to the next chapter, white veterans only. So the New Deal talked about a great impact on changing the country as Servicemen's Readjustment Act, aimed at reintegrating 16 million veterans. It reached 8 of the 10 men born during the 1920s. Even rights qualifies as the most wide-ranging set of social benefits ever offered by the federal government in a single comprehensive initiative. Basically, the federal spending for former soldiers in this model of welfare system totaled $95 billion in 1948. They devoted the GI Bill in the Veterans Administration, which employed by 17% of the what they say was family by family transferred the United States by the way they the soldiers, generations that were marrying and setting forth into adulthood, returning back to civilian life. They were able to, with the help of the GI Bill, millions bought homes, attended college, job to commemorate their skills. These opportunities, by advancing momentum towards suburban living, mass consumption, and creation of wealth and economic security with legislation, created the new middle class. This was the most important thing that they did.
so, well, 1 second. This idea, when we have these conversations about rugged individualism, pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, you didn't get this done because you didn't work hard enough, right? This is what policy, intentional policy, did to build that group of people and to give opportunity. It wasn't. And we have to have those honest.
Yeah.
We have to have those honest. And we get suckered into black people just shiftless and they're just lazy and they just didn't work hard. And that's why they're where they are. But listen to all you just outlined, Diane.
So they also going to say that the GI Bill did create a more middle-class society, but was mostly exclusively for whites.
Yes.
And under Southern auspices, the bill was deliberately designed to widen the country's racial gap, starkly different in their treatment. The plight of Negroes, and particularly living in the South, government Negro vets. These are some of the titles of newspaper articles. This program had completely failed veterans and minorities. The next year they talked about our Negro vet fact filled report attention to a profound for black social polarizing studies conducted by the Bureau of Census, stating that there are set facts of Negro veterans today at that particular time. Over 1 million dark-skinned ex-servicemen are, by training, discipline, sacrifice, and determination, prepared for integration into the nation's life as first-class citizens. The nation has almost universally failed to grasp the enormous opportunity which is presented through veterans' benefits for the minority group. It was a document concluded in the GI Bill, and that was earmarked, and they state, for white veterans. They also talked about how residential ownership became security for the middle class. Social geography of the country altered dramatically. They encouraged home ownership, which was helped spawn the suburban sprawl, which gave the GI Bill, they said, change where and how Americans live. Suburbs sprang up like mushrooms around every sizable city. Also, the Homestead Act of 1862 filled the prairies of the far west, while the GI Bill created and filled the suburbs.
Now, a second.
Go ahead.
So, I remember, and my daughter called me the other day. She's on a page right now in terms of what's going on. And she said, Dad, do you remember the debate about affirmative action of Livingston? Right? And he was debating because they were talking about race relations and racism and then one of the classmates said, well, white classmates, and I gotta say that Lucy at that time was one of 2 black kids in the entire, and the girl said, well, I mean, I don't think racism still exists. You're here, right? You're here at Berkeley Heights, and through some like black folks who have jobs. I encountered it where there were folks who thought that I got a job the complaint person having a job sweeping power a group of people. That's affirmative action. Not a class in a 2,000 people and the person is black and so everything is all right. And much like believes that because Obama was black, that again we got our reparations for us, but that's not it. Actually, well, you like
how it is.
it
Yeah.
shows you what it is, right? And like Kevin, action really the impact. Formative change as a result. So this idea of down the road wait a little while. We expect really makers I can't be boldly seek to create transformative and impactful change for us.
Okay, so it goes on to say in this chapter, and this is still under white veterans only, that one central policy-making office and hundreds of district offices bounded in a functional as well as political way by state lines. Operating in this manner, the exclusion of black veterans came through the mechanisms of administration. This flexibility that enabled discrimination against black veterans also worked in the advantage of many other veterans. In this aspect of affirmative action for whites, the path to job placement, loans, unemployment benefits, and schooling were tied to local VA centers, almost entirely staffed by white employees or through local banks and both public and private education institutions. By directing federal funding in keeping with local favor, the veteran status that black soldiers had earned was placed at the discretion of parochial intolerance. Which is basically what we face now when you talk about small businesses, when you talk about going to buy a home. You're going to mortgage bankers who don't look like us, and they're making decisions based on whatever other parameters they now put in place now, being the credit score system, but by what you look at, and that's how they're also deciding whether they'll approve you for a loan for you to live in a particular city or town.
Yep. I mean, this is real. But folks believe that we are, that we're delusional. Or that we're angry. Right? Why are we talking about this so much? Why don't we just move on? How do you move on?
Yeah. So the next chapter is chapter 6, Johnson's ambitions, Powell's principles, and thoughts on renewing affirmative action. They talk about affirmative action performs acts of corrective justice. Public policy is used to compensate members of a deprived group for prior losses and for gains unfairly achieved by others that resulted from prior governmental action.
Wait.
Go
That
ahead.
sounds like reparations. Wait a minute. Wait, read that again. They call it. Go ahead. Read that whole piece again.
It says affirmative action performs acts of corrective justice. Public policy is used to compensate members of a deprived group for prior losses and for gains unfairly achieved by others that resulted from prior governmental action.
See, ADOS, right? That's speaking to me. I've been deprived, right? My people have been deprived. There needs to be corrective action. It was done here, right? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Diane.
No, you're good. Strong opponents of affirmative action say never. It is important for supporters to meet the principal objections such opponents use when they call for an end to every kind of racially focused affirmative action with persuasive arguments pitched to the same level. If not, affirmative action will lack the reasoned thought explaining how past racial injustice should count that it is legitimacy requires. Nor will its advocates be able to shape and guide the targets and measures of future policy to end, as Johnson put it, the one huge wrong of American nation.
All I gotta say is we need somebody looking out for us. We have to elect people who are looking out for us, because nobody is. And it's crazy. But I don't know. Go ahead, keep reading, Diane. I just get. Is anybody commenting in the feed?
No, they're not. I think they're all
Numb.
they're all, yeah, they're numb. They're numb. They talked about building on Powell's principles as significant advantages. First, his demand for strict scrutiny appropriately sets the bar high, but not beyond reach. It balances a widely shared desire to make color neutrality the dominant norm with the cheerless recognition that this goal cannot be achieved if the role race has played in American life is downplayed or worse, ignored. It goes on to say that every violation of colorblind norms, in short, must be justified with the goal of a just colorblind society in mind. Impartiality should be the prominent value.
Yeah, but how do you no.
So this is into the last chapter. This is all part of the last chapter.
Listen, in the book it also talked about how a segregated army was fighting for equality, right? Was fighting for democracy, which I thought was hysterical, right? And they said, how do you do that within that same army that is supposed to be fighting for democracy and fairness, but the army itself is segregated?
So while people are saying things have gotten better, they basically have not changed. And they have not changed because the policymakers are still following the same blueprint and enforcing the same things.
Well, because those policymakers are being supported by, right, those folks who benefit from the status quo. And so they are there as gatekeepers of the current system. That is fact. And so when we have the conversation about, this election or any other election, we say, well, who are these people? Who are they? And what policies specific are they pushing? Specific. And then how specifically does that policy improve your circumstance? We don't ask those questions. And that's why, I'll take the mental illness, but I also say, that is the lack of maturity, right? That we don't ask those questions, that we don't challenge those things. Well, look, here, my streets are filthy, my schools are filthy, and my schools are failing. So I want to elect people who are going to resolve those things. Now, talk to me about policies that you want to enact that can bring about some change. They don't ask those questions. They don't demand those things. And then, like Farrakhan said, and then there's no consequence. There's a reward, in fact, Diane. They get reelected. But there's no
you just saw it just recently on Tuesday. They just had these primaries, and some of the same people who have not done anything for you have been reelected again. Yeah. So I don't understand what people think is going to change and how they think things will get better, or what they even see as being better, best, or worse, because it seems to be consistent across the board that they do not plan on changing anything. And I mean, if you talk about just the basic things of the reopening of schools, you see that across the state, across the cities, no one has a plan. They do not have a definitive plan on how they should be reopening schools, but they're now telling you that now the governor is saying we're making it mandatory for everybody to wear masks outside. So were you not supposed to be wearing masks outside before? If you're walking through restaurants, you shouldn't be wearing your mask. So there is no definitive direction because they really don't want to make any changes. They are happy with the consistency as to what they're getting. And they're getting the votes that they need to stay in the place that they want to stay in. They're not there to solve any problems. They're solving their own problems. Yeah.
They're there to maintain the current. That's it. All of them. Every single one of them. They're there to maintain. And then the ones who run outside, so we talk about Ras Baraka when he ran in 2014 saying he was going to break down the system. So sometimes elected officials or those who are running for elected office get cold, disingenuous to begin with, right? So they never had to tear it down, but they knew that they could emotionalize you, get you charged up to believe that, and that's what they do.
Right.
And then when they get there, they run the game that they had intended to run the whole time. So, and then there are instances where, and we see it in Congress, where there are some people who are elected and they're trying to tear it down, but it is so structural. And you said it before, Diane, like they've interwoven,
every single policy. They have put their hands on every policy. Every policy. And you have to say it because they've created it.
Right, and that's why when folks say, well, we gotta elect this person or we gotta elect that person. No. It has metastasized into every facet, right, of American life.
Yeah.
You have to blow it up, right? It's kind of like a cancer patient, right? Who they give them chemo. They say when they give you chemo, it kills the good cells and the bad cells. But the cancer, is such that you have to take that approach, right? Because it will hide behind and around the good cells. And so your ability to eradicate cancer without killing any of the good cells, you're not going to get it done. So yeah, you're gonna have to blow it up. You got to go in and blow it all up, all of it.
So even speaking on that, there was an article that was in the newspaper this morning, and they talked about Black Lives Matter and how they're going to create this work strike, and everybody's going to go out, and those who can't strike will, stand outside their business for 8 minutes or something like that. But they're also talking about, and now you see they're morphing into, and they're talking about now unionizing issues. They're talking about union issues and all these other issues, which is now moving them away from what they were talking about initially, which made it easy for them to shift from that because they really never put together a legitimate agenda as to what their demands were for police brutality. They allowed the cities to come back and say, oh, we'll do this or we'll do that. And nobody, of course, again, is unified in any particular city or state.
Right. So, look, the only plan should be economic and political power. See, because once you have political power, then you can enact policies that will bring about change, transformative change. That's it. And so when whether it's Black Lives Matter or any other group, see, but they're fearful of saying we're coming for economic and political power. See, because that's what Martin said, and it got him a bullet. right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, absolutely. So we get to the point where we understand that the political power will turn into the economic power for us, we're going to be stuck. Or we'll be stuck online standing outside the New Jersey motor vehicles for 3 hours in extreme heat waiting to get inside. Which I can't understand why government agencies are the worst customer service agencies in the world. They like represent the state, but they seem to have the most incompetent system out there. So that's what we'll do. We'll stand outside and wait for them to provide us the services that we need.
so what's the moral of this story? Is that when affirmative action was right? So, I feel like Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, or so put my cardigan sweater on and tie my shoes and talk to you guys about the moral of today's show. See, when affirmative action was white, things got done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They got done.
Yeah.
Not for us, but they got done for them. And you've got lip service from black, and there's no transformative change happening at all.
No.
None.
Nothing that is. I guess it's like I talk about good R&B music. It's nothing that's going to last forever. You have all of this stuff that pops up. These rappers have no longevity. None of it has longevity. It's like wishy-washy, in and out, going with the emotions. Whatever you want right now, that's fine, and keep it moving. We talked about in the book about unemployment, and the access to unemployment, and now during this pandemic, we're having the same issue, especially in the state of New Jersey. There's still people who've never received their unemployment. But then you have other people that are screaming, oh, stimulus checks are coming. We're going to get another stimulus check. So they're very confused on the services that they're supposed to get, that they're deemed to get, but they're okay and happy about a one-off deal. Confusion. I don't know what to tell you, but that's the life. I thought it was a really good book. I, of course, suggest that everybody go out and get the book if you haven't read the book already, to go get the book again, or audio, and read it, because I think one of the biggest issues between this book and the other book we read, the Willie Lynch and the Death of the King, are books that we should be giving to our elected officials, because they do not have, like you talk about, the acronyms to make changes, because of the history of government. That's one of the biggest issues. You don't know the history of government and how things actually were originated. You don't know how to make the change, even if you wanted to know how to make the change, because you're playing catch up the whole time. Trying to put out little fires that are immediately happening, as opposed to, like we talked about before, going all the way back to the beginning. And when you're talking about what's his face was saying, we should be singing the black anthem along with the national anthem at the football games, which makes no sense. Why not eliminate and go back to the original and say that this is not what is right, and this does not represent any of us to begin with? But we take those little things, and people talk about, oh, well, we have to take all the small victories, and we have to highlight the small wins and the small victories. But I don't think any of them are small victories or small wins at all. I think it's just pacifying us.
We can see, guys, when affirmative action was white, or when policies were put in place to help people, what happened? We can see it. It's tangible. The question is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's another thing, specifically in New Jersey, they talked about, how they were fighting again with police brutality, how they wanted to make sure that police officers' records could not be withheld, and they wouldn't, they would be stopped from being able to go from one department to another department in another city or another state and be able to get a job when they had disciplinary actions on their records. Well, here's the perfect example. The court in New Jersey rules that they won't release the names of officers that have been disciplined. So again, the government is protecting their own. But on the flip side, if you commit a crime, your information is public information. So again, they're writing laws to protect who they want to protect and not everybody across the board.
Yeah.
The last 9 minutes, did you see the article? And this is going to be a humdinger. The former Orange acting business administrator indicted on corruption, fraud, and tax charges. I said he was indicted on everything but sexual harassment. Everything under the sun, he has done it. Was this not the craziest article ever?
Yeah.
I saw it in RLS Media, and they went into great detail of the various different things that he was charged with, specifically fraud and kickbacks for a fake Saturday literacy program that he never had, for redevelopment projects or fraud.
Is he back in New Jersey?
Well, they said his residence is in Georgia, but I don't know if he's back since they indicted him. I don't know how that works. The YMCA project fraud, kickback for that, plagiarism. They didn't mention the university or the degree or the certification that he was seeking, but from what the article says, makes me lean towards it could have been Rutgers University, because I know a lot of government certifications. Rutgers has won that bid for several years to provide those certifications for several different government agencies. And in particular, he took somebody else's paperwork and paid the school and asked the professor to grade his attached assignments that he did the work to keep from having a failing grade. Wow. He talked about the graduate school payment schemes.
People know we're talking about Willis Edwards, right?
Willis Edwards, federal tax fraud. Talked about he was in cahoots with his CPA or his accountant that did his taxes. False statements that he made to get a mortgage so that he could get mortgage assistance to keep the property from going into foreclosure. And he was given this, this home modification agreement, and they actually forgave $95,000 off of his mortgage. Like, what the hell?
Wow.
Like, anything and everything, he was dabbling in it, and he was taking benefit from it. Criminals are very, what would you say? Busy. They got a lot going on in their minds.
Creative. They're very creative.
Creative.
Yes.
They're very creative.
Yeah.
So,
I met Willis Edwards one time, and yeah, I shook his hand, and I literally, Diane, felt like I needed to shower, not just wash my hands, but shower. Yeah.
So it's starting to unfold. This investigation that started probably, I think, back in like 2015, 2014. It started to unravel. And of course, like I said, he's been indicted. So it's just a matter of time. And they also listed, they said charges, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and mail fraud. You could face 20 years, wire fraud, 20 years.
So that's very interesting, right? So you guys got to know, when you commit a crime and then you mail, like you use the federal post office, right?
Federal.
Yeah. Or if you commit what was the other one? Wire fraud?
Wire fraud.
Right.
Federal.
So, right, because that is, electronically transferring money.
Bribery in connection to the business with federally funded local government money, 10 years could face. That's from federally funded local government. So basically, he had 2 employees fraudulently document and backdate documentation to show that he used money for this literacy program that never happened.
If you're going to steal somebody's money, don't steal the government's
Steal the government's money. That is not the way to go.
That's not because they're coming to get their money. Wait,
Yeah.
Diane, they're coming to get their check. They say, I'm coming to get my check.
Oh man, false statement concerning a mortgage, 30 years.
And you know,
then
here's the other thing about when you steal from the government. I went to a court hearing for somebody I knew, and I think I mentioned this on the show before. When the judge came in, right? So we were all sitting in the courtroom. Judge came in. They said, "All stand," you know, "all rise" or whatever. So everybody stood up. And then they said that bailiff or whoever the person is says, "The United States of America versus blah blah blah."
Good Lord, everybody.
like the whole country, Diane. It said United. Diane. It wasn't like, you know, the township of blah, you know, versus it's the United States of America. The entire country and all of its resources will be used, if necessary, to bring you down. Yo, don't steal the government's money.
Scary. That's scary. I would not want to be in his shoes. I don't even want to be a witness for him. I don't know anything. Because if I say the wrong thing, they'd be looking for you too.
I'm not going to mention the person's name or their gender as not to give away who they are. But they are currently serving time for some similar kinds of activities. I think they falsified documents. They took government like grant money and didn't do the job that they said they did. They set up like shell companies in order to be able to get contracts. This particular person, I think, also engaged in falsifying, using fake Social Security numbers and kind of stuff. And this person is currently serving time. Now, I know this person very well. And so a friend of mine said, "Hey, are you going to go visit this person?" I said, "Nope." Nope. Now,
they're not going to have my name on the book.
Diane, that's what I'm saying. I'm not getting on the government's radar for nothing. For nothing. See, because they start saying, "Well, who visited? Well, why would Eric Dawson go visit?"
Nope. Just start looking into me. No, thank you.
Don't want you doing that.
Not going to help you out.
I'll see you when you get home.
and maybe not.
Diane, listen. Another person I know. Now they say birds of a feather flock together, but I'm not part of that bird family. But another person I know got caught up in some craziness like this. And then, you know how they say, when everybody around them goes to jail, but they don't go to jail, you know who the,
who the snitch was.
You know who the snitch was, right? So, I'm sitting there, and this person, I'm not going to say male or female, said, "Hey, Eric, can I talk to you in the hallway for a second?" Like, why you want to talk to me in the hallway? Why can't we talk right here? You know, and then I started thinking, do they have a wire? Do they have a whatever? Right? And again, not that I'm going to hear. My father gave the one lesson, right? Those who you won't let die won't let you live. Here's the other lesson he gave. And fare thee well with this one. He said, don't say anything that you wouldn't say if the Attorney General was on the phone or sitting in the room. Now, if you apply that, you'll never go to jail. Like, you just won't.
Right.
See, he said, always assume they're listening. And if you do that, you will never, ever be enticed to do one of those illegal deals. You'll never be enticed, and you'll never get an ankle bracelet.
That's right.
Or yeah.
Wise words. Well, it's been a great day.
Hey Diane, listen. I lasted. I mean, I was fading. I'm fading.
You're fading a little bit.
As soon as I hit the off button here, I'm just gonna lean back and fall
out.
Yeah, that's it. It's good seeing you. You look great. The vacation.
Thank you.
Look at
Thank you. It's time for my nap.
Well, go enjoy those.
All right, then. You have a great day.
Remember when affirmative action was white? And now I'm going to ask you now, when was affirmative action ever black? Think on that.